My name is Tsakane and some call me Tabang. My surname is Mathe. I'm 30 years old, born 15 February, obviously 91 since I'm 30. And my star sign is I'm an Aquarian.
Aquarian. Yep. Dope stuff. We can start now.
Okay.
Sometimes our masculinity acts as a defense mechanism, and more often than not, it's projected in a very toxic way. Well, the masculinity is not a problem. There is masculinity in women and femininity in men. It's the toxicity that's destroying us. Have you ever, at any point in your life, had to deal with toxicity from a man?
I think we experience toxic behavior. For me, day to day, I experienced it in the workplace, and I had an incident previous week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I experience it daily.
Yeah. Is there at least maybe one incident that you would describe that you went through? Just one. Doesn't have to be recent, it can be old or whatever.
Okay, so my supervisor, he'd always make jokes or comments about how we have PMS. Oh, but she's a woman. Oh, but, he'd say things that make me feel somehow inferior because of my gender. Yeah. So I experience it a lot. Bully behavior I experience from him. I feel like that's the toxic element of,
Okay. Do you think you've ever displayed signs of toxicity towards a partner or a man or anyone in general?
Most probably. I might not have been aware, but I probably have.
In what way?
No, sometimes you say certain things, just as sort of like a defense mechanism to shield yourself from certain behavioral attributes from men, you know. So, yeah. I guess I have. I can't think of a particular incident at the top of my head right now, but I wouldn't say no.
You wouldn't say you haven't? Okay. When you were still in high school or primary school, what were the general behaviors towards females, how they were treated and how they were approached?
To be honest, I don't really have a recollection of of that, but I feel like we were treated as equal. Yeah.
Even from your peers and
maybe probably not from my peers, but I don't think I don't think I have a incident or related memory related to my high school days.
Okay. As an individual with female friends, I've been fortunate enough to be made aware of my privilege as a man. Right? For example, when I get into a car, I don't lock the car doors or anything like that. And I always have my window down, so which is something I've noticed that most of my female friends do when they get into a car. They lock the doors and they take the windows out. What are some of the things that you've noticed that I guess remind you of your lack of freedom as a woman, as opposed to the freedom that men have?
Men would always be offered the front seat, or sometimes somebody would make remarks or say, why don't you let so-and-so drive because he's a man? And it makes me feel like they don't trust me behind the wheel because I'm a woman, or they believe he'd have better control of the vehicle, So yeah, those are the two incidents I can think of from the top of my head.
Oh, okay. Very subtle. These displays are very subtle.
Yeah, but they're there.
But they're there.
Yeah, I feel like women aren't really trusted behind the wheel much, because I think my grandfather once asked to be, when I was a new driver, after I just bought my car. He asked to be dropped off at home. We're at a funeral. And he asked to be dropped off at home, and he's like, no, can so-and-so drive me home? And it made me feel some type of way. You want to use my car, but you don't want me to drive you home.
Yeah.
I felt a little insulted, you know.
Okay. I know a lot of black parents don't do this, so when they usually do, it's in a context or not really spoken about in depth. What did the people that played a role in raising you did the people that played a role in raising you ever talk to you about womanhood, or did you have to figure things out as you grew older?
Oh no, my grandmother is very traditional. My grandmother would make us clean the house, make us wash the dishes, and all these chores that are believed to be female chores, because we are generally supposed to do certain household chores and men are supposed to do specific things. But my cousins would get away with a whole lot of things, and we'd have to wash my male cousins, that is.
Yeah.
We'd have to wash the dishes and clean the house, and my sister and I don't really like cooking. So she'd make comments like, who's gonna marry you if you don't know how to cook, you know?
Yeah.
And also, sometimes we'd go to funerals. I'm not very domesticated. I don't like cooking. Let me put it that way. And, you know, these older aunties would say, yeah, no, so-and-so's kids, babu, you know, meaning we are lazy because we don't want to help prepare food for the day, the funeral.
Yeah.
So, I experienced it a lot. And, they somehow make it as though this is meant for women. There is like a gender stereotype, sort of, But men would get away with so many things, you know.
Of course.
And she'd say, Uri, this is a woman's role and this is a man's role. But when I look at things and the way things were when we were growing up, I feel like my grandfather isn't really much of an example of what I had perceived a man to be, you know.
Would you say that's sort of a teaching that's been imparted upon you, where you're like, when you were young, you would be like, okay, that's what a woman is, like what she was saying and things?
Yeah, but I've always been rebellious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I grew up a little tomboyish, you know. I'd play with boys and girls, and sometimes I'd do these activities that are linked to men's sports or activities. Like I'd ride on bikes, play with rollerblades, and I was very fast growing up. I used to run and do all those things. So for me, I had a lot of resistance, you know, even though I knew a woman's role, so and so, I just believe that's not all I'm limited to.
So what would you say makes you feel fulfilled as a woman?
I didn't expect that question.
Well, you shouldn't expect
as a woman. Privilege, you know.
Yeah.
I get away with certain things because I'm a woman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, I wouldn't have to carry boxes or heavy things, especially at my workplace, because I have female privilege.
Oh.
Yeah. No, you can't make her carry those things. She's a woman.
Yeah.
So I guess those kind of privileges, and sometimes having people to open doors for you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. How have men generally treated you?
Different. I don't think I'd say men. I have had men respect me, and I have had men look down on me, and uh, I don't know. I don't know how to answer this question.
So and so.
So and so, yeah. So and so. You know, you do get professionally. Professionally, we are undermined, and sometimes they don't hear you, or your opinions and your sort of contributions are not taken into account because I'm the one saying what I've put on the table, you know. Yeah. But generally, I don't experience a lot of bias. Yeah. But I just think it's professionally that men would behave a certain way because I'm female. Or probably I don't have that much authority because, you know, it's a woman behind the email or the phone call, whereas if a man called and said the same thing or addressed the specific issue that I had addressed, they'd react differently. So I'm a little in between.
Okay. What makes you feel like less of a woman?
Body shaming. You know, I was telling my friend the other day, this guy made a silly remark. He's like, "You're just a yellow bone. You'd need to go to the gym to be my type." And he's like, "You're too young to have that fupa." And I'm like, "What?" Sort of telling me, "Ore, dude, shed off some belly fat. No, you know, you're too young to look the way you do." And it sort of made me feel small in a way, but I didn't react that way. I obviously put on my defense shield as anybody would. But yeah, it actually made me feel some type of way. You know, as women, we deal with certain insecurities. It's as if this thing doesn't bother me anyway. And for you to come and boldly say something like that, I don't know, just made me feel some type of way.
What's the most consistent act or behavior that men express onto you personally?
They sexualize a lot of things. Yeah, and I've also experienced it in the workplace. Like everything you'd say, or they'd look at you and just sexualize things. Yeah, I really hate that.
In what way?
Like the remarks. You'd say something and they just turn it around and associate it or link it to sexual behaviors, you know. Yeah.
How vulnerable, open, or expressive have the men that you've had in your life been?
Men don't just get vulnerable with anyone. I think I've only ever experienced it once. I mean, even my brother can't be that way with me, and I've tried to open that room for him to, you know, trust me and allow himself to be soft and vulnerable with me. But it's not often that I had men around me be vulnerable with me. Yeah.
What would you like to be able to do freely as a woman?
I mean, I guess I'd say wear whatever I like without being shamed or insulted, or without people having to make certain remarks, or without being body shamed or sexualized. You know, people will look at you and whistle, and, you know, some would say make derogatory remarks, and yeah, I just want to be free to be myself. That's it.
Walk around at night.
Yeah, freely, exactly, with my phone in the hand without being afraid. Like you actually mentioned that thing, Yahore, when now you sometimes you don't lock your door, and we can't, you know, as women, fear of so many things, you know. So yeah. It would be great to just walk around and be free, but yeah, we live in South Africa.
That's true. That's true. When was the last time you lived an experience that served as a reminder of the kind of society that we live in, sort of imbalanced for women, I guess?
Imbalanced in what sense?
As in, you don't feel the same type of freedom that men have. When was the last time you lived that experience? Like, okay, no, it's not okay. Yeah.
Can't think of anything at the top of my head.
You can't think of
Yeah.
it. Okay, I will pass it. When in a relationship, what responsibilities would you say that a man must carry out, and what expectations do you have of a man?
Well, I just expect a man. Women are perceived or expected to be nurturers and caregivers. I believe men can also be nurturers.
Yeah.
Gentleness, kindness. You asked about the vulnerability of men in my life. And I've actually noticed that a lot of men don't want to be vulnerable with us, or with anyone for that matter, because it makes them feel, probably strips them of their manhood in a way. They'd be perceived to be weak, but for us it's strength.
It is, yeah.
So I guess I'd say that men can be nurturers too, and they can also show kindness. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And then yourself as a woman, what responsibilities would you say you carry out in a relationship, or you expect yourself to carry out?
Equal to what I've said. I've learned that men are babies and they want to be babied a lot. So you sort of treat them like you'd treat a child. They like women who sort of consider their feelings, considerate people.
Yeah.
I bring that a lot. You sort of interested in their life, their day, and what's happening in their lives at that specific point in time. Sort of open up a room for them to become vulnerable with you, which I know is nearly impossible, but yeah.
Are there any stereotypes about men or masculinity that you know and understand today that you didn't know or understand years ago, that you feel like have maybe shaped your perception today, or yeah?
One that's very close to my heart is that men aren't supposed to cry because they'd be perceived as weak. I tell my brother all the time, if you feel hurt by something or you're not okay, it's okay to cry and express yourself. I found that a lot of men find it difficult to express themselves, and I just feel like it's okay to cry. It's okay to be weak.
Yeah.
It's okay to be yourself. You don't have to go to the gym and lift weights, because in order for you to be perceived as a man, you need to be the strong person, muscular man who has a husky voice. A man doesn't have to be all those things I've just
described.
Yeah. Thank you. But you can show signs of weakness and still, for me, I still perceive you as a man. It doesn't mean if you cry then you're less of a man as society would deem you to be. Yeah.
True. The men that you looked up to in your life, what qualities did they have? What made them stand out for you, or why did you look up to them?
Very responsible. caring, reliable,
Mm.
you know, and hardworking. Sort of struck a balance in his life, you know, and family orientated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes a man feel like a man to you? And I mean it in a sense that if you were to strip them of the elements that you're about to mention right now, you'd no longer consider that person to be a man.
To me, that's a tricky one.
To you, to you.
Are you asking what is my ideal man?
Yeah.
I don't want to link it to physical attributes, you know. I'm trying to to move away from linking it to physical attributes, but I guess presence, you know. Having some sort of authority, you know, when you speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, that's it. And just simply, I want to feel protected when I'm with you. So if I sort of sense I have that with you, then yeah.
I think sometimes the world treats men as they treat themselves. So there's a lot of pressure on men to be providers, but at the same time, we also put pressure on ourselves to be exactly that. And so we shut the world out when we have problems, and then we complain that all the responsibilities fall on our shoulders when it becomes a bit too much to carry, or when we lose our jobs and we are no longer in a position to continue to provide. So can you recall a time in your life when a man in your life, could be a friend, a partner, an uncle, dealt with either a loss of a job, a source of income, and what their behavior was like?
Yes. And I found that they're very withdrawn, you know, because my experience, women don't generally respect men who don't bring anything to the table or to a household, you know, which is sad, but it's the reality we live in. We need to eat, we need shelter, we need to be provided for.
Yeah.
And if he feels like he cannot do that, it sort of strips them off of their manhood, you know. I had an incident where someone very close to me was very close to taking his life because he felt like, you know, I can't provide for my family. I mean, they'd have days where there's no food,
Yeah.
you know, and this person has kids, and I mean, he was in a very dark place. So yeah.
Is he fine now?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's okay. I think he's okay. He's distanced himself from me a bit, but yeah.
Okay.
From the looks of things, he's getting there. Yeah. Because he does have some sort of income. It's not obviously what he was used to when he was working, but he does have some sort of income.
Okay. You reached the end of the interview.
Oh, is it?
Wasn't bad, eh?
Sweet and short.
You're starting to enjoy it.
I was, because I was a little anxious at first, just as I was relaxing and, you know, getting into it.
Yeah.
We reached the end.
We're
Okay.
done.
No, thank you.
You
Thank
can
you.
start with the shoot now.
All right.